Hey, how's everybody doing? Morning, everybody. It's Good Friday, a very different sort of day. Do say hello so that I know there are some people there with me today. Hopefully, we have St. Michael's Bishops Cleeve group on board right now on this lovely day. Actually, one day maybe I will get to do these things outside. So, anybody saying hello to me at the moment? Brilliant. Oh, hello, Catherine. Thank you. Somebody's there. Hello, Marjorie. Phew, the stuff's working. Hey, we're getting there bit by bit. So wonderful. I know people usually come along and join us as we go, getting their equipment working and all that kind of thing. So just to say, most of you probably know, I'm Malc. I'm the vicar or rector here at St. Michael's Bishops Cleeve. And this, I think, is our fourth live stream time together. As we know, our church buildings are all closed at the moment, which is really sad, but we are looking to meet in this way, in this different way. So morning, Mal. Hi, Fee. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Carol. And it's been such a joy, actually, to be connecting with so many of you in different ways. And so do please say hello on the screen if possible. It's just great for others to be able to see who's joining us. Because it is church. It's not just church as we know it, though. But it is wonderful to be able to connect in this way. Hi, Pauline, Doreen, Pete, Babs, hi, Alan, and Pam. Great to have you here with us today. And you know what? There have been people that have been watching us from further away as well. So we've got some people who are in their kind of lockdown in other bits of the world as well. I think we've got some people in New Zealand. You know, there could be worse places to be locked down, I suppose. But we recognise that we gather from our local communities here and from further away. So do tell us where you are as well. If you're not around Cleveland, around here, do tell us where you are. Be great to know that as well. And a particular welcome to you if you're joining us for the first time today. Everybody's welcome to be a part of this group. Although they're a big family, we have family members that have been along in our church for years, and we have those that have joined us more recently. And if you're just pitching in today and you feel you're just on the edge of things, not sure about God, church, faith, and all that kind of stuff, we don't care. We're just pleased that you're here, and we hope that you'll find your time with us fulfilling as well. Hi, Andy. Oh yeah. Hi everybody. Yes, morning, Debs. Hi, Helen, Pippa, Gemma. Hi, Gemma. It's great to see you. Fantastic. Brenda Dick, Steve Dale. Hi, folks. Jan. Yeah, welcome everybody. So it's a bit of a different type of event today, really, because it's Good Friday, and Good Friday isn't necessarily a bundle of fun, if you like. It's a different sort of day. This day is one which is surrounded by darkness and cloud and uncertainty and danger. It's a brutal day, actually, particularly for Jesus. But it's an important day for us. Do you remember those times when you've been to the cinema and you've seen a film that has really got you thinking, and when it ends, everybody waits and nobody moves, and you just kind of watch the credits come down or up, and everybody sits there. There's a kind of thoughtfulness, a somberness to it, if you like, if that's a word, because no one wants to move. You've been made to feel sad, you've experienced something that is upsetting or meaningful, and it just doesn't feel right to kind of leap out and just run off or to laugh or whatever. So everyone sits there, then gradually people begin to move away. And Good Friday is a bit like that visit to the cinema. When you've had that visit to the cinema, you don't necessarily think, I wish I hadn't gone. You actually think, yeah, it wasn't easy being there, but I was glad I was there. I learnt something, or it got me something to think about. And Good Friday is like that as well. We have to do Good Friday. And we particularly have to do Good Friday before we get to Easter Sunday. Those two things belong together. The joy of Easter Sunday comes after the pain and the suffering of Good Friday. So these two things belong together. So we recognise too that, you know, many of us will feeling, we live in dark times at the moment. We live in difficult times. You know, some of you may be here today and feeling very afraid, worried about what's happening. Some of you may be concerned that you've caught COVID-19. Some of you may be concerned, some of us may be concerned for people that we love who are suffering like that way in the moment. We know we have people from our church family right now who have had this disease, and some who have been and are very seriously ill in hospital at the moment. So we felt this kind of whole coronavirus come a lot closer to us. So most of us will know people who are infected one way or another, affected as well. And those who are working on the front line that we're concerned about. So, and of course, we have sadness for those people that we've already lost to this disease and other things at this time as well. So my vicar colleague Richard and I have been taking funerals at this time. There are more that are coming up as well. You know, and it's heartbreaking to not be able to meet with families, to talk about the loss of their loved one face to face, to embrace somebody, and then to have those services where there's just been a handful of people, all at a set distance, but still to do something that's meaningful and is giving that person dignity until we can meet in larger numbers in the future for a kind of celebration of that person's life or remembrance service of that person's life. So these things are affecting us all in different ways, and we may feel angry or worried or stressful. We may feel worn out, we may feel a whole range of things. But as our folk often hear me say, and I've said, I think, on this stream before, that what this is about is bringing the real us, all that we're feeling, all that we're going through, to the real God who cares about us and doesn't care about Malc Allen who pitches up on a Sunday, but cares about what Malc Allen does and feels through every week, through every minute, and all the different tasks I'm doing, because he's interested in every aspect of our lives and every feeling that we have. So thank you for those of you who have continued to be joining us. And it's great to have you with us, Sarah. Billy, fantastic. Great to have you on board, Billy. Got to know Billy when he was playing football for Cheltenham Town. I'm the chaplain there. So great, Bill. It's great to have you on board this morning. Hi, Val. Hi, Jen and Esther. Hi, Phil Kuehl. It's great to have these folks with us. So you may be sitting indoors in a room that might be busy, because in a moment I'm just going to ask us to see if we can just kind of quiet ourselves down. And I recognise for some of you are thinking, Matt, there's no chance of that happening. But maybe you are sat there outside on your phone in the sunshine. Maybe you're listening to the birds and just smelling the sweet air. Maybe you're indoors with your laptop, or you've got something on the big screen there. What I just want to encourage us to do as far as possible is just to kind of settle ourselves for a bit. Gather ourselves into this space and this time together. Be aware maybe of our breathing, of allowing it to settle down a bit. And as it were, relaxing into our own presence or the presence of those around us. Being aware of God. And trying as hard as we can to letting some of those burdens, some of the things that are worrying us at the moment, just kind of settle. Sometimes we Christians talk about just giving them over to Jesus for a bit. Sometimes we use an image of kind of just bringing them to the foot of the cross, letting him handle them and carry them for us, at least for a while. Sometimes it's good for us actually just to slow down, and maybe that's what you're able to do right now, to focus. I encourage you maybe to switch off other devices that might be around, other things that might distract you. It can be hard to do, I know, but maybe that could just help to settle you, to do one thing slowly and well, rather than do 2 or 3 things at a pace and less well. So some words of introduction then before a prayer this morning. So from the confusion and uncertainty and worry of our lives, we gather across our villages and towns and wherever we may be. In the midst of a world being ravaged by coronavirus, we've come to share a story of betrayal and darkness, threat and execution. So you're invited to lean into this story today. You're invited to come and share, to bring something of your darkness as we share the darkness of Christ. You're encouraged to bring and acknowledge the darkness, the difficulty, the danger that you may feel. So I pray, God of light, God of shadow, in our time together today, open our hearts to your presence in all that is uncertain and dark at this time. Help us to see meaning in the Good Friday story and keep the fire of hope alive in our hearts. Amen. So one of the questions that I think we Christians are being asked, not all the time, no one's rushed up to me and asked me that, keeping a safe distance at all, is, where's God in this pandemic? Where's God in all that we suffer at this time? And I'm conscious too that we already had stuff going on in our lives that might have been difficult before this whole lockdown and self-isolating and keeping the right physical distance from one another happened. We already had stuff going on in our hearts and minds that we regularly on a Good Friday will bring to God and bring to the cross. So we're going to be thinking about that question in a few moments' time. But once more, I just want to acknowledge that the things that we bring to God are real dark experiences. And I recognise from the people amongst you that I know and love, that there are those of you who are going through chemotherapy at this time, going through treatment at this time. There are those that may be waiting for a test result and you feel like that just hanging over a cloud. How will it come back? Am I going to be clear or am I going to have to take another turn? Well, I need other help. There'll be those of us that have experienced bereavement of somebody that we love. We have had members of our church family die over these last few weeks. You may well know also the pain of bereavement over someone you've lost, maybe someone that's older and more vulnerable towards the end of their natural life, or it could have been the death of just a tiny one, a baby, who had their full life ahead of them but seemed to be snatched away far too early. So you may be carrying the bereavement of a tragedy like that. And of course, with so many of us that join together in this way, there's bound to be those of us as well that are suffering with depression or anxiety, whose constant companion is that particular kind of black dog, sometimes being tamed, sometimes all over us. There'll be those that wrestle with that today. Those who'll be lonely, whose loneliness is only made worse by all that's going on at the moment. And there'll be those who feel the pain of a breakup of a relationship between a spouse or a couple or child and a parent, and dealing with that at the moment as well. We bring all these different things as we are today. There may be those of us whose darkness is a dark secret that not many people know, maybe nobody else knows, but it's something that we carry within that brings us, shame really, and a sense of moral failure or whatever it might be. That might be a burden that we bring today. Or maybe the cloud above us is something to do with our finances at the moment, what's going to happen with our job or our business, all that kind of stuff that's hanging around at the moment. I wonder what it is that you're afraid of today. I wonder what that dark cloud is for you. But having said all that stuff, you might be thinking, oh, well, Malc, I think I just kind of tune out right now. This is far too dark and dangerous to go, but hang on in there, guys. But I also want to acknowledge that there'll be some of you there today who are tuning in with us and being with us today who don't feel like that at all. And that's absolutely fine. That life's great for you. Maybe you are sat in the garden, you're feeling the warmth, you're looking forward to a walk later on. You've had far more contact with family through social media than you have done for months, maybe even years. So you're finding out things about yourself. You've taken up something new. And I want to acknowledge that today as well. That's absolutely fine. Over these days of Holy Week, Good Friday and Easter Sunday, all these things get mixed up. But so thank you for being with us here this morning. So that question there then, where's God amongst all this pain? Where's God in this pandemic? Well, Christians have tried to wrestle with that question, the problem of evil, sometimes we call it, for centuries. And it must be said that the problem of evil, the why question, the where's God question, hasn't been consistently a problem of evil for Christians across the world and in all time seasons as well. It hasn't always been something. There could be a lot to be said about the way that we ask that question in the developed, sophisticated, me first world in which we live. We ask that question in a particular kind of way, but that's maybe a detailed talk for another time. But it is something that Christians have wrestled with for centuries. And there are some things that could be said about it. We could think about the natural disasters that happen, the earthquake, the storms, the avalanches, the diseases, and maybe the coronavirus could come under that category. There are the natural things that come. We can't really point at anyone and say it's his fault or it's her fault or it's that dictator's fault. But some might look back and think, when you go back to that box set, the big epic story of God's creation of the world, and you go back to that very first episode where God made us and there's Adam and Eve, that kind of proto-symbolic, originators of ours, those original family, if you like. God gives them the garden. He says, look after it, love it, tend it, let's work it together. But then they overreach themselves. The fall, we call it, they mess things up. And it's like maybe at that time they messed up their relationship with the good earth. Things got spoiled and we've been paying the price ever since. Well, there might be some mileage in that argument. I kind of get that, particularly the world we think of now and how we're polluting it. I get that. It goes so far, perhaps. And then there are the kind of moral evils as well, the ones when we can point and sort of, that person hurt that person. And we might think and look back over generations, centuries, where we can see that's happened. It's the evil of a particular person, of a dictator, of a Hitler, of a Mussolini. We might look back to the Holocaust, of course, or the slave trade or apartheid. And we can look back and think, because of someone's moral failure, because of someone's power, they did some terrible, terrible wrong. And we might say, well, that's something of the love of God gave to people free will. He says, I want you to choose to love me, just like we do with our own children. We let them go in love and we hope that always they will return, that always there will be that love amongst us. But in one way, we don't force it. I get that too. There is some kind of mileage in that view. And then there are those passages in the Bible that talk about how suffering and trial is part of God's plan for us to test us, to make us stronger. And we can tell, yes, those stories of going through a difficult time, a really difficult time, and the things that we learned about God and ourselves. And we came through stronger, a better person, with our kind of priorities in life sharpened, more focused. Those things can go some way in some areas, thinking about suffering. But I don't know, when there are thousands of people dying because of this virus, how far those answers can go. But maybe we don't have to go to the masses that are dying today. I still feel that if I sit with a family who have lost a child, I find it very difficult just to come up with those moral arguments for evil, those natural arguments, or say it's a testing time. I find that difficult to do. I think sometimes in those particular specifics, maybe I just have to say, I don't know. I don't know why that's happened. I don't know why God has allowed that to happen. I don't understand. So the question you might have for me then, Malc, is, can you believe in a God that you don't fully understand? So here's the crux of Good Friday for me this year, is that when there are those things around us that we just don't understand about God, we look to Jesus. That's what we do. And particularly in this Holy Week and Good Friday, we look to Jesus because we see in God, in Jesus, as one who suffered with us. And we see Jesus suffering for us. The mystery is that God was in Jesus. Jesus was fully divine and he was also fully human. Get your heads around that one. We Christians have been trying to get our heads around it, but there's something beautifully mysterious about it. Jesus was fully divine, but he was also fully human. And that helps us on a day like this to know that Jesus, who suffered, was God, divine, suffering with us. We don't know what happened in many years of Jesus' life, but when at about the age of 30 his public ministry began, what we see in those 3 years with his friends, that he spent so much time with those who were sick and sorrowful and the sinners that would speak, those who were outside the culture, outside the religious good people, if you like. Jesus spent so much time with people like them, people like me, people like you perhaps. And he healed the sick. He healed the blind and the deaf. He set people free from the burdens that they felt, the things that had screwed up their lives. He set them free so they could be living life to the full and getting back to their families and life like that. He was so beautiful like that. When someone brought an adulteress and a woman in that society who could have been actually stoned to death with the rules, and that's what they wanted. Come on, Jesus, what do you say about her? He just had a chat with her, and he didn't condemn her. It's wonderful, beautiful. One time when going along with the crowd on his way to Jerusalem, when some of the darkest things were going to be happening to him, it's important business, he hears a blind person calling out from the sidelines, and he stops the whole crowd and he calls that person over. That's our Jesus, on big important business, but willing to stop the crowd for the one. He did it for me. This is our Jesus, suffering with the poor. And I use the word suffering because he did all those wonderful things, often in spite of those who were criticizing, the religious authorities who were getting him so wrong. He did it for love of us. He did it for love of me, when they were saying, don't do this stuff. Stop doing what you're doing. He put his reputation on the line. This Jesus, he suffers with us. He suffers for us. So I wonder if you can imagine then the thing that you're carrying at this time, Jesus somehow bearing that with you, somehow saying your name and saying, I understand the anxiety you're going through. I understand the pain that you're going through. I suffered with you. I have experienced it. I get it. Maybe that can be some comfort for us. When we don't understand everything, we can believe that this Jesus is with us. Well, all those things were happening to Jesus, all his time with the poor, and then we get to Holy Week. Last Sunday we thought he rides into Jerusalem as king, but just on a donkey. This is our servant king we thought about. And then as the days go past and the events unfold, Jesus has a last meal with his friends, the Last Supper. It must have been such a deep time for him, such a special time. The guys are beginning to understand that bad things are going to happen to him. And they're wanting to hang on to him so much. But then Jesus experienced something that we experienced. Again, he suffered with us. Because he said to them, one of you is going to betray me. Some of us will have been betrayed at work or somehow in a relationship or let down or something. This is Jesus, the Son of God, but humanly feeling he's going to be betrayed by one of those that's closest to him. That would be Judas. And then some of the guys are saying, we won't leave you. We're going to stick with you no matter what happens. And Jesus said to Peter, before the cock crows, you're going to deny me 3 times. And Peter's saying, no, Lord, I'll never deny you. I'll go all the way with you. Jesus has that sense of becoming into a place of being alone. These guys close to him, you're going to betray me, you're going to deny me. And then he gets to one of his most difficult times. He goes into the Garden of Gethsemane. He'd been there before with his friends. He takes 3 of them, Peter, James and John, with him. We get the impression from the Bible story that Jesus is in actual turmoil of spirit. He is hurting so much. He takes these guys with him. He says, look, I'm just going to go and pray. Can you just just stay, wait with me, pray for me. I'm just going to go and pray with my Father. He goes to his Father, he prays this amazing prayer. He's in agony of spirit. He says, Father, can you take this cup of suffering from me? But I tell you what, Father, says, not my will, not what I want, but what you want. May that happen. He's not only sensing, I think, the physical pain that's coming his way, but also the emotional, spiritual burden that he's going to be carrying. Because as we look at that story and as the Christian church looked at it and understood what Jesus said about him, what we understand about it, when he went to the cross, he was going to be carrying all the pain, all the shame, all the guilt for all the stuff that we'd ever got wrong. And he was beginning to feel that. 3 times he goes back to his mates, and what does he find them doing? They're asleep. You see how he's just finding himself completely alone, the denial, the betrayal that's coming. And this guy's his closest, just leaving him. Soon after this, we hear the sound of soldiers approaching, the rattle of weapons, an angry crowd perhaps alongside. They come to get Jesus. There's Judas with them. He comes to Jesus, greets him, gives him the sign that this is the one, arrest this one. They arrest Jesus, and we hear how all his friends run away. They desert him. He's been betrayed. He's deserted. How awful. He's suffering with us. Some of us maybe could identify with something of those feelings. So he's arrested. He gets taken to the high priest. He gets taken to Pilate, who then sends him to the Herod at that time. Then he gets sent back to Pilate. He's interrogated. He's beaten. There's one time when he is near some people who are warming themselves by a fire, just in the distance. And we hear that Peter is with those people, warming himself by the fire. And some people see Peter and they said, "Hey, we recognise you. Weren't you with Jesus? You're one of his pals, aren't you?" And Peter says, No, I don't know him at all. This happened 3 times. They're saying to him, "No, you've got the accent. You're from his neck of the woods, aren't you? You're with him. You're one of his followers." And Peter 3 times denies it. "I don't know the man." He gets so angry, and then the cock crows. And in one of the Gospels, we hear, I think, one of the most poignant